In a cruel world where only force rules, Yunji had to go through many obstacles to achieve his cherished goal. He lost his wife and daughter in an accident, but thanks to the Holy Grail, he would be able to meet them again. The Holy Grail was a reward for completing the game. Yunji was destined to take first place and would definitely become a powerful player. After the loss of his family, the young man literally lost the meaning of life. Due to his bad mood, he asked to leave work early in order to return home as quickly as possible. This didn't happen to him often, so the boss came to his senses and sent him home. Today, the boy needed to rest. A lot of time has passed since the tragedy, but the guy's already feeling better. Lately, he at least started joking and sometimes appeared at corporate events. Hearing the whispering, the boss shouted loudly and forbade any discussion behind his back. He ordered all workers to mind their own business. The death of his wife and child was a big blow for the hero, but every year he came to buy flowers on his beloved's birthday. This was already an unchangeable tradition. He also bought 150 grams of meat for seaweed soup. The gentleman wanted to do everything beautifully on the birthday of his beautiful wife. All the gifts were quite real, but the young man returned to an empty apartment. It was dark, quiet, and didn't even smell of his beloved wife at all. Over the years, Yunji has become accustomed to such an environment. Having put down the gifts, he began to prepare seaweed soup to please his beloved. The birthday party took place in a quiet atmosphere. The young man set the table and put a frame with a photo in front of him in order to feel at least a little of his wife's presence. The hero talked to her as if she were sitting opposite him, as before. He apologized for not being able to prepare a better dinner on such a memorable day. From the day Yunkyung passed away, the guy's life was never the same. The only thing left to him after the death of his wife was her diary. That evening, the hero opened his diary and decided to write a message of congratulations for his wife. The only way he could convey his thoughts and feelings to her. Yunji wrote that he came early today, as promised, to prepare the soup. He looked at the photo frame and laid out everything that was in his heart. The pain of loss forced his lips to squeeze tighter to keep from crying. His heart was bursting at the seams, but he continued to tell his wife about everything. A depressed Yunji wrote that he bought his wife's favorite flowers and bought a teddy bear for Mina. In the notebook, he asked his daughter if she liked the gift. The boy wrote for a long time and asked the family questions, but he did not hear answers or voices, did not feel warmth or breath. The memories caused him great pain. The hero recalled with horror his wife's smile and Mina's gentle voice. He remembered how happy he had been recently, but now his everyday had lost its meaning. The guy dreamed of feeling the warmth of his family at least once again. He missed them very much. Now the notebook was filled with his feelings, and his tears blurred the ink. Never before had his life been so empty and lonely. He felt the presence of his family everywhere, and it broke his heart forever. As a result, the message from my wife looked more like scribbles. The young man could not cope with strong emotions, so he made dirt in his notebook. Suddenly, something incredible happened. It resembled very real magic. The notebook suddenly lit up, and the letters surrounded the guy from head to toe. When the glow stopped, the hero immediately grabbed the notepad to check the contents. But after flipping through all the pages, he saw that the notebook was empty. On one page, it was written that the family could be returned. The young man's heart froze, and time around him literally stopped. He couldn't believe his eyes. It was a real miracle. For many years, the guy dreamed of bringing his wife and daughter back, but it was all too surprising. A few days later, Yunji again asked to leave work early. He promised that this would not happen again, so the boss let him go. His thoughts haunted him. All the entries he had kept for more than 6 months disappeared from his diary. And starting from the first page, it was filled with new entries. The young man thought about throwing away the diary but could not do it. He started keeping it on September 14th, and all incidents, accidents, and deaths were recorded there. Everything that was written in the diary was fulfilled, but what was more important was that the family's return could be true. On September 18th, at exactly 10 o'clock, the first departure to another world was supposed to take place. This was the last chance for the hero to meet his family. Having lost his wife and child, the boy could not live further, so he decided not to miss the opportunity. Holding his breath, he waited impatiently for the time. As soon as the clock hand pointed to 10 o'clock, everything instantly changed. A magical whirlwind began, which turned the room into real chaos. This strange phenomenon teleported the boy to another place. Literally, a moment later, he found himself on a sports ground in the forest. The hero was not the only one who was here. The guys were scared and looked around. It was now clear that the message in the notebook was true. No one understood what kind of place it was and why everything was the way it was. In fact, they were all here for a reason. Training was about to begin. The hero found himself in another world, the basis of which was the game. Everything was exactly as described in the book. Now he had to overcome many obstacles. The guys were ordered to present the desired weapon within a minute, otherwise they were automatically given a sword. Many immediately thought of a pistol, but for some unknown reason they were not provided with one. Instead, the boys received a wooden bow and arrow. From that moment, the training began. The first task for the heroes was to unite and destroy the oncoming flock of bloodthirsty zombies. Yunjae knew nothing about this world. He suspected that the diary was records of the future, but neither this nor the real world was his present. Facing the walking dead in person was not that dangerous. It was only a little scary at first, but the young man did not want to fight with them. The longing in his heart and the desire to meet his family again still made him shed the blood of living corpses. With tears in his eyes, the boy rushed into battle. To stop the endlessly attacking zombies, it was necessary to cut off their heads. The heroes swung their sword mercilessly without hesitation. Once the dead man was killed, Yunjae received praise for being the first to stop the zombie. The achievement was received, and all stats were increased by 2 points. This made the hero very happy, and he rushed into battle. Since the stats were increasing, he decided to immediately kill all the nasty zombies in order to win. While others struggled to protect their own lives, the brave hero quickly gained experience points and increased his physical strength. The boy had no time to think about others. He needed to get stronger himself, so he handled the ball like he was born with it. Eliminate the largest number of zombies, the boy received respect and 100 experience points. Thanks to his efforts, his weapon became sharper. After the battle, Yunjae was very tired and thought it was due to his stamina stats. The information itself appeared in his head. The basis of the world was the game. The brave hero did an excellent job in this task and received 14 mana points, which was a good result. The diary said that magic was the most important stat, but right now the boy needed agility or strength to become stronger. 198 people survived the mission, and the second stage of training began. Those who, after 3 days, would be among the top 100 who received the most stats could survive. It was a real game of death. The players were incredibly scared that they would have to give up their lives if they lost. Only half of the participants would make it out alive. The brave Yunjae was not at all scared. He realized that he was definitely the only one who received the diary. There were 2 ways to get skill points. With the first method, the player needed to fight and get rid of the monsters of this world. The second method was even easier than the first. When killing another person, the hero could receive half of his points. This could create real chaos in the game. The second stage of training was open, but now the players were in a different mood. They looked like they were possessed and wanted each other's blood and glasses. The players took the easy way out so that there were only 100 people left, so they started killing each other rather than fighting monsters. Yunjae couldn't bear to watch this bloody war, so he stopped the players. He told them to kill monsters and earn points so as not to die. One of the players got very angry and said that the boy simply knew how to fight well against monsters. But in reality, a hero would fight against people in the same way. He said that during their training they must join forces and face the monsters together. Having interrupted each other, they would not have left the game. It was impossible to predict that at the end of the battle, there would have been only 100 people left. But at the end of the mission, they would definitely need to act together. In fact, the hero knew that the next training would require a large number of people. For this reason, it was impossible to allow many to die. The young man urged everyone to stop the fight and make an effort to become stronger and stay alive. Now it was unprofitable to kill each other. To save the family, mistakes could not be made, so the guy decided to go survive. But suddenly a young girl caught up with him. Young Yu-ra wanted to go with the hero. She said that she could help him, but the young man immediately refused. He was sure that the girl never killed zombies, but only hid and watched as other people killed them. It was survival behind other people's backs. The young war did not need such partners, so he sent the girl back. This time she chose the wrong target, and the boy wasted his time. On the third and last day of school, someone discovered a cave. It was a man who was on the side of the steep cliffs. The area was so narrow that only one person could fit into it. The hero was just nearby, and in addition to this, he was able to get there. But the monsters inside the dungeon were much stronger than ordinary zombies. If he had entered there on the first day, he might have died. But the people who entered the cave became stronger than anyone else. Yunjae had no time to doubt. He needed to become strong quickly. Right at the entrance, a terrible creature attacked the hero. The guy managed to react and waved his sharp sword to wake the monster in two. The first monster encountered in the cave was a carnivorous insect. Although his shell was not strong, he was quite tenacious. For killing an insect, the brave player was awarded 10 experience points, and damage reflection was increased by 1. If he had known in advance, he would have persistently saved them from the very beginning. After completing the training, depending on the points received, the reward would be changed. Even the most difficult road was not an obstacle for Yunzeng. He only thought about his wife and daughter. He had to get a meeting with them by any means. Moving forward, the guy felt the improvement in his skills and his body. At first it was hard, but as he increased his stats, he became more and more accustomed to combat. The moss on the walls indicated the presence of moss ants. These were the monsters that the hero met after the carnivorous insects. Alone, they looked weaker than fruit-eating insects, but they were dangerous because they never moved alone. The smart young man noticed that the ants were attracted to bread. He used it to attract the monster's attention, and then finish each one off. As soon as the ants were distracted by the bread, the boy swung his sharp sword and rushed at the vile cave creatures. The monsters died one after another. There were only 6 moss ants left, but this was not the limit of the hero's capabilities. He had excellent command of his weapons and easily cut through the bodies of monsters. The boy was very focused and determined. He was not distracted by anything in order to win, but suddenly one of the ants stung him in the back. Even the bite did not stop the brave warrior, and he continued to fight. The only sounds heard throughout the cave were the sounds of a sharp sword and the heads of monsters flying from their shoulders. 3 cave creatures wanted to pounce on the boy, but with one sharp movement he jumped to the side and the 3 monsters collided with their foreheads. Yun pulled off an incredible maneuver, and this allowed him to kill the last creatures. The hero's courage and true purpose helped him in this difficult ordeal. Finally, the hero received experience points, strength, and the skin of a moss ant. It was luck. After catching an ant for the first time, he gained the skill. He later learned that it was almost impossible to acquire such a skill during training, not to mention gaining E-class experience for 2 parts of training. Thanks to this, 5 stats increased. The higher the skill level, the stronger the effect became, so this skill was very important. The diary said that tomorrow other people were supposed to come to this cave. There was no more information, no other pages were turned. The hero had already come a long way, but still did not understand what kind of diary it was. He began to suspect that he had written all this in the future. There had to be a reason for going back in time if it was written by someone else from the future. Yoonjae really wanted to know what was on the next page. The participant in second place was very unhappy that the arrogant guy was in first place. Kim Do-hyun wanted to quickly remove the young man from the front rows. Jung-Yu-ra was ready to tell where Yoonjae went. In return, she demanded that the young man who was to be killed be given to her. Meanwhile, the brave boy continued to explore all the dark corners of the cave. Over and over again, he encountered vile moss ants and killed everyone on the way. Not even 2 weeks have passed since the start of training. The mana increased rather slowly, but it was quite enough. Even though the creatures in the cave were monsters, they had the same characteristics as ants. This meant that a moss ant queen had been discovered. At this time, that same terrible creature was already standing around the corner. It looked like a real ant, but it was the enormous size of a real monster boss. The hero found himself in a real trap. He knew nothing about the queen, and besides, there were a lot of ordinary moss ants here. The guy wanted to hunt them a little, get more stats, and after that attack the queen, but soon people were supposed to come here. Today was approximately day 2, which means they were supposed to arrive tomorrow. Normal people had about 10 game points, but Yoonjae had twice as many. He decided to try to carry out his plan at all costs and not miss the boss. Suddenly, the game panel opened in front of him again. In accordance with the rating, he was given a 3-day supply of food and 8 stats randomly assigned. Strength, health, agility, and mana have also been increased. Now the boy had enough bread for bait, so he easily lured all the monsters to one place. With deft movements of a sharp blade, he dealt with another gang of moss ants. After the small fry, the most crucial moment came. The queen was waiting for the hero. She hardly moved and seemed as if she was used to acting on her own. Suddenly, 2 angry monsters attacked the boy from behind to tear him to pieces. Yoonjae already had excellent skill in fighting them. He swung his sword and cut them into 2 pieces. The problem was the constant collection of moss ants. Thanks to his skills and abilities acquired during 2 tasks, the hero could withstand at least 100 ants. Without hesitation, the brave warrior attacked the whole steel of monsters. Swinging his sword in all directions, he cut off their limbs and then cut their body into several parts. It was a tough battle, and there were more and more ants, but the points and stats received were like welcome rain in a drought. His strength was running out, and the boy could barely hold on. If not for his skill, it would have been dangerous. He couldn't give up on obtaining a D-class skill, a skill that could be acquired by defeating the Ant Queen. There was no time for doubt. It was necessary to act as quickly as possible to defeat the queen. It took the hero only a few seconds to exert maximum effort and scatter the gang of monsters. As soon as the warrior finished with the small enemies, he took off and attacked the queen. With a deft movement, he jumped on her head and plunged a sharp blade straight into her skull. Meanwhile, Kim Do-hyun, Jung Yu-ra, and other participants in the game were already in the cave. There was a very confusing road in this place, but they still moved on because they knew that someone had already entered there. The cave gave more points than the monsters outside the cave, but it was not comparable to capturing people, so Kim Do felt sorry for wasting his time. The enraged master was going to catch the bastard Yoonjae, who single-handedly dealt with all the monsters here. He fought in the cave alone, so he certainly had to be tired. The eyes of the cruel Kim filled with a thirst for blood and revenge. He wanted to catch the boy, no matter the cost, and take first place in points and rating. The queen was destroyed, all achievements were obtained. As a reward, the hero received an active skill that could save lives in a dangerous situation. The power of the skill increased in proportion to mana. The higher the mana points, the more pumped up the skill became. This skill alone was already an achievement. The power of this world could be divided into 3 groups, in which points were the main ones. As a result of their increase, those who were in this world could become real superhumans. Skills were magic that such people controlled. Thanks to mana, they used superpowers that were beyond the control of an ordinary body. The last group were items, the possession of which gave the opportunity not only to raise stats, but also to use new skills. Even as an ordinary person, one could gain superhuman strength through items. This is why they were valuable, and therefore they were the real goal of the hero. At this time, following the corpses of moss ants, Kim-do finally reached the right place. He couldn't believe that he was late, and his enemy had already killed all the ants and the bloodthirsty queen. At that moment, the culprit of the killed monsters appeared in the cave. Yoonjae realized that he acted differently, so the future in the diary changed. His enemies shouldn't have come so early. Seeing the boy safe and sound, the gentleman was simply furious. He did not want to believe that the young man had killed all the creatures and was not tired at all. The one who increased his stats by killing monsters was more dangerous than others. Kim Do-hyun had no personal problems with the boy, so he had to let him go. The boy was no longer the ordinary person everyone had seen before. It was now clear that collecting experience points was a stupid idea. To become a leader, the gentleman had to kill monsters in the cave and increase his stats. Now he decided to catch the guy at all costs. There were 148 survivors left at this point. Stage 2 of the training was completed. The first 100 people in the points ranking had to continue in Stage 3. There was a real battle between the players, where they earned places with their own blood. Literally a moment later, everything around changed. The survivors of the second stage found themselves in a new place. The hero saw completely new faces in front of him, among which were not his enemies. Finally, the third stage of training began. In the task, the players were given 3 doors of different colors. Only 10 people could enter the scarlet door, 5 could enter the blue door, and only 1 could enter the white door. Each player had to step through the chosen door and continue learning. Although the scarlet door was designed for 10 people, the difficulty level was very high. There was no guarantee that the guys would be able to complete the training. Compared to the scarlet one, the difficulty level of the blue door was lower. But after entering the last white door, the training for the players would be over. After hearing this, one of the participants in the game could not stand it and rushed to the white door. All the players immediately tried to stop him, but the door did not open so easily. In fact, the door selection order was determined based on the number of points. The person with the most experience points had to choose the door first. For the players, this seemed like an unfair decision, but with such conditions, the choice obviously fell on Yunzeng. The strongest person who took first place chose the scarlet door, which stunned the other players. The guys were perplexed and decided that all 10 people could survive. The next participant was Park Joo-ho. He turned out to be a real egoist and chose the white door. He didn't think about the lives of the other participants because there was no guarantee that they would do the same. Despite other people's dissatisfaction, what was more important for the young man was that if he chose the white door, he would definitely be able to survive. He didn't think he should have turned down this chance. The young man said that the strongest participant acted rather stupidly, even though he was ahead of everyone from the second stage. Yoonjae considered his decision to be correct and replied that even the blue door was better than the white one. One person had to go through the white door and 5 through the blue door. Due to the capacity, all remaining participants were assigned to the scarlet door. Participants were given 10 minutes to enter. One of the guys was very scared. He thought that he would definitely die if he walked through the scarlet door. Before the time ran out, he decided to break into the white door, but was immediately given away by Park Joo-ho. The doors were supposed to close in 5 minutes. There was no more time, so Park Joo had no choice but to stop the fight and go through his door. It was also time for the others to take their places. When the young hero walked through the door, he was immediately transported to the old village. It was completely quiet and empty around, but suddenly 2 more participants in the game approached. Yoo Jong-gyo's clothes were stained with blood, and as soon as he introduced himself, Yoonjae began to scream loudly. He said that the pathetic guy rose up killing people, because the stains on his clothes did not look like the blood of monsters. In fact, this was true, and the young man killed some people in order to rise in power. However, Rising up by killing people was better than being a coward and a fool. Twice a day and a total of 20 times, monsters were summoned to the village. The summoning time was not defined. When monsters appeared in the village, the heroes had to block them. If the stone in the middle was broken, the player lost. There should have been no more than one person left in the village. If there was no one left here, participants outside the village would be automatically summoned based on the distance to the village. It was safe outside the village, and from that moment the third stage of training began. In this task, there would be no cohesion between the players. In such a situation, usually someone would run away. Even if all 10 people took this training, more than one person would leave the village. The rest would follow one, and as a result, the hero would have to undergo training with a small number of participants. If Yu Jong-kyu had escaped, he would still have been brought back. He said that there was no point in escaping, and the likelihood of his team members dying would become much greater. Because there were too few people, perhaps no one would have left. Yoon-jae said that the three of them needed to stay in the village and fight to survive. Here, when killing monsters, the stats of the heroes increased, and in proportion to this, they became stronger. Since there were 3 players on the team, the number of monsters they had to hunt was also increased. This was the reason why the guy had to choose the Scarlet Door at all costs. In any case, when Stage 3 ended, players would have to begin completing Stage 4. At that moment, the ground shook under my feet. Due to the strong shaking, huge cracks began to appear in it, from which a whole crowd of devilish goblins crawled out. Yoon-jae was the strongest and bravest on his team. He ordered 2 players to protect the stone so that it would not break, and he rushed into battle. The goblins were made of living flesh, which meant they were tough on the hero's sharp sword. Devilish creatures attacked from all sides. They were not such weak opponents. The situation was heating up. The players were surrounded and fought as best they could. In such a battle, they might not survive. The brave warrior was literally torn into several pieces as he killed some goblins, while others attacked him from behind. There were too many opponents. The guy did not have time to fight them off. When the hero was already looking his death in the eye, a real miracle happened. Suddenly, the strengthening activated and the rapid consumption of mana strengthened his body. The damned goblin thrust his sword into his back, but the protective barrier did not allow him to penetrate inside. Soon the bloody battle with the devilish goblins was over. Everyone survived, but young Yoon-ji suffered greatly. Blood was flowing from her shoulder. If the situation worsened, the hero would have to do everything alone. After the fight, Yu Jong-ji was very upset. He actually didn't want to kill people. He admitted that he killed the man, not because he wanted to, but because he attacked first. Guilt tormented the boy from the inside, because he was still too young to easily endure death. Yoon-jae tried to support him, but suddenly they noticed that the young girl had disappeared somewhere. After a long search, the guys never found her. The young man decided that Yoon-ji was seriously injured, so she was afraid of her death and ran away. This was not a situation in which he could think adequately. Now the guys were at a loss. If there were fewer of them, then the number of monsters should have decreased. The situation would not have changed from talking, so the hero tried to at least think optimistically. The guys had to continue the difficult path of Stage 3 together. Yoon-jae ordered his partner to take on 10 monsters in order to independently confront the other dozens. Having gained strength, the brave heroes went into battle. They had to try hard to stay alive, because the number of goblins exceeded their capabilities. The heroes' new skills made the goblins seem like just weaklings. Players fought with all their might and attacked the creatures with extreme cruelty and strength. Compared to the time when the boy was catching moss ants, the points have increased significantly. Now he knew that he had not made a mistake in choosing the Scarlet Door. The training was completed when the stars were already shining brightly in the sky. The heroes successfully cleared the village. There were still 9 days left until the end, and everything had to be as written in the diary. On the first day, 1 random stat point was given. On the second day, 2. On the third day, 3. And this happened every day. Unlike the blue one, training in the Scarlet Door lasted 10 days, so even just staying alive you could get 55 points. Yu Jung-kyu received the E-Class Devil's Deal skill. When activated, strength and agility increased by 5 points, and health and physical defense decreased by 2. All this time, Yoon-ji was not far from the village. She took some bread and water with her and hid behind a large rock, occasionally watching her team. It was already the 4th day of battle, but the guys did not give up. Jong Ji-yu thought that he only had to fight against the devil goblins, but the further he went, the worse it got. For the first time in his life, the young man saw moving trees, huge rats, orcs, and other creatures that mutilated his body. The heroes needed to gather their last strength into a fist to finally finish the test. Jong Ji-yu could not have died. His juniors would have remained on their own. They wouldn't be able to go to school themselves, eat lunch on time, and would definitely cry if their older brother died. It was day 10 of the third stage of training. On this day, no monsters appeared, and this was very alarming to the players. This made them worry even more, and they thought that the system had given them a break. It was even more difficult for two players to deal with the monsters. They hoped to the last that the girl would come to their aid before the final attack, but suddenly the stone rock shook. A strange vibration was felt in the air. The rock shook with all its might and glowed with a bright light. After a few seconds, the rock turned into two sharp towers. The seal of the stone was broken. At that moment, something incredible happened. The stone gate opened, and the monster sealed in the stone was released. The Lichy demon boss came out. Along with the demon, his little servants were summoned. These were the skeletons of previously fought warriors. The guys were left alone with their fears. Now they had to really fight back to back. The huge monster looked exactly like the skeleton of a killed buffalo, but only the demonic eyes remained alive in it. The main task of the heroes was now survival, so Yunja attacked the beast without hesitation. A devilish deal was made between the players. While the hero dealt with the boss, Zhang Gyu had to focus on the small creatures. The young man fought like a real warrior. He firmly held his sword, which stuck out from the back of the devilish lychee. This monster would soon have to give up its hooves, so there was not a moment to waste. All that was left was to put in a little effort to win, but suddenly the buffalo became angry and forcefully threw the boy into a stone. The beast smashed the stone barriers and disappeared from sight. A moment later, he appeared before the hero with renewed vigor, his wound sparkling like a Christmas tree. Yunja immediately realized that the beast could regenerate its wounds. Meanwhile, Yunji decided to return because she thought the boys couldn't cope without her. She was literally petrified when she saw what her team was capable of. Biting her nails until they bled, she began to worry very much that the guys probably wanted to take revenge on her for escaping. Strong doubts crept into my head. The fear of death was now stronger. Yunjae knew about the monster's regeneration, but it still wouldn't help him. Swinging harder, he cut off the beast's tail, which immediately began to glow and regenerate. The bloodthirsty Liche was invulnerable, his strength was simply incredible, and his endless recovery helped him to be invincible. The hero had no choice but to continue the fight. The boy was sure that the monster must have had a weak spot. He ran and jumped high into the air, and with one blow of his sharp sword, the daredevil dealt a strong blow to the beast's skull. The buffalo's head immediately lit up and a bright spark came out, which illuminated the entire space. A strong explosion enveloped everything around, blinding the heroes. The guys barely managed to cover themselves with their hands from the strong pressure of the explosion. At that moment, the ferocious Lichy burst out of the smoke and attacked the hero with enormous force. The boy used the strengthening skill to defend himself, but the strong horns of the monster pinned the boy to the wall. Without the skill that the young man received on the 5th day of training, he would have suffered much more. Suddenly, he noticed a stone on the monster's head, which could be that very vulnerable spot. After some time, the carcass of the vile Lychee lay lifeless on the ground, his body of bones falling apart. Zhang Qiu looked at the remains in horror and waited for his partner to appear. When Yunjae crawled out from under the heavy bones, a loud scream was heard. The nasty Yunzi chose the right moment and stabbed a sharp blade into the boy. The bloody guy fell to the ground. The girl was clearly obsessed with the idea of her death. She believed that the guys definitely wanted to kill her, so she decided to get ahead of them and kill her first. For her, it was not murder, but just self-defense. The girl did not intend to die in such a place. The game turned her into a monster. Swinging her sword, she wanted to kill Yunjae to get their experience points. She thought that the young man was dying, but she was very mistaken. At that moment, the hero raised his sword and cut off her hand in a second. The girl paid for her betrayal. Yunji acted stupidly, for which she was punished and deprived of any chance of life. The sharp blade of the sword neatly cut off her head. There was little time. The wounded Zhongqiu was breathing with all his might. He should not have died because he had not yet seen the youngest, so Yunjae poured the contents of the magic bottle onto his wound. The low-level elixir instantly penetrated the young man's skin and began to literally stitch up the wound. The elixir was diluted, and its effectiveness was greatly reduced, but it could be an excellent medicine. Zhongqiu remained alive. His wound quickly healed. The elixir went to his savior after defeating the Ant Queen. In a dangerous situation, it could become his backup life. The guys fought hand in hand for a long time. Only through joint efforts were they able to survive. By protecting each other, they became true brothers, so Yunjae could not do otherwise. From this moment on, Stage 3 of training was completed. The hero received 40,000 experience points, 10 random stats. The most pleasant bonus was the additional reward in the form of Jacquard's shackles. Now the guys could move to the location of the next training by going through the door that appeared at the location of the stone. An even more interesting adventure awaited them outside the door. After going through the door, the guys came out at the place where there used to be 3 doors. It didn't matter which door they went through. Stage 4 began for everyone at the same time. At this moment, 2 lousy guys came out of the door and wanted to kill Yunjeng. He realized that, most likely, they cleared the Scarlet Door themselves or killed all their partners. 56 people survived Stage 3. Stage 4 of training consisted of competition between camps. From this moment on, all existing players were combined into one group. Now they had to compete with other participants located in a different training location. The winner would be the camp that killed the most monsters and received the most team points. The group with the most team points would be able to complete the final training. It was quite easy to accumulate command points. They were awarded to players who hunted monsters behind the white door. Behind the black door, you could increase your stats and get individual points. Depending on the individual points received behind the black door, various items were given out every day at midnight at this very place. On command, players could return to the original location, which was saved automatically. Even if they lost in the team competition, the 10 players with the highest individual scores would be able to complete the final tutorial. The level of monsters in Stage 4 was too different from those in Stage 2. Pakju could barely keep his feet away from 2 huge cyclops and could not even cope with one of them. The nasty creatures were already catching up with the guy, but suddenly Zhang Jiwayu and Yunjae appeared in the forest. They came to the rescue and took down 2 mythical creatures in a matter of seconds. Pakju couldn't even say a word. He was literally boiling with anger. Feelings of helplessness overwhelmed him, because his enemy was stronger and more experienced. Until midnight came, the heroes were planning to go deeper into the forest. Zhang Qiu said that Jay looked happy enough as he examined and checked the bracelet. The shackles created by King Jahara from a part of his soul increased the strength of its owner by absorbing his mana. They added attack power, increased armor protection, and bypassed opponents' defenses, which were increased by mana. The shackles made it much easier to use the skills. Moreover, when uploading it, the armor of rivals could not be taken into account. With constant development, the hero could significantly increase his potential. The first day of Stage 4 of training has been completed. Yunjae once again took first place in the individual points ranking, with no one else earning team points. After counting individual points, the hero was given a reward of 12 coins. Coins could be exchanged for desired items and skills on the last day of training. Yunjae proposed a plan for the players to survive together, but Kim Do-hyun was against it. He said he could have survived without collecting team points. The boys' plan was simple. Everyone had to earn a certain number of team points. And after that, everyone could score individual glasses or go to bed. Most of the guys thought along the same lines, but Kim Do-hyun was the only one dissatisfied. He wasn't going to believe in the boys' good intentions without a shred of evidence. Behind the black door was a dark forest inhabited by ominous, huge creatures. There, the hero earned individual points by fighting monsters. His bracelet helped him a lot, making his work and weapon much stronger. Controlling his weapon, the boy easily dealt with even huge monsters. The result was good, but the spirit really drained mana. In one blow, the warrior lost half. He needed to save mana, even if the battle would take more time. The monster's body was like a rock. It was difficult even to cut it. Zhang Jiayu was amazed that his partner was able to defeat such a monster in one blow. The young man was sure that Yunjae's goal was not just survival. In fact, the hero really had a goal for which it was not enough just to stay alive. It was something like a return to the ordinary world. It was already getting dark outside, and the guys had gone far enough into the forest, so they decided to move on. But suddenly, they noticed something familiar on the hill. On the last day of the 4th stage of training, the guy heard a rumor that someone had discovered a golden goblin in the thicket of the forest. At first, he did not believe that the goblin lived in a forest inhabited by orc-like monsters, but now he saw it with his own eyes. Meanwhile, the players in the forest held a meeting, and things became more complicated. 10 people had to go to the next stage, which meant that one of them had to die. The guys could not beat the 4 leaders in individual points, so they wanted to win the joint battle, but doubted their abilities. Kim Do-hyun heard an interesting topic of conversation and approached the players with a proposal. He always looked for profit where there was opportunity. At this time, Yunjae and Zhang Giwayu were chasing the goblin with all their might. He was the answer to Stage 4, but he specifically ran so that the guys would bump into monsters along the way. The players only had 3 days left, so they decided to return. It was written in the book that the goblin was the essence of the stage, so Yunjae wanted to catch him at all costs. The second day of Stage 4 was completed. The rating was updated, and now the scoreboard showed 0 results. 9 people did not keep their promise. During the 2 days of testing, Mr. Du-heng persuaded the rest of the guys not to earn points, because they were not so important. This made the hero very angry. Players might not consider everyone around them a team, but because of such a decision, others could simply die. The boy was simply furious and suggested that the players kill him. The argument could have turned into a fight, but suddenly one of the guys got involved in the conversation. He told Yunjae to put himself in their position and give them some time to first earn individual points and then group points. In fact, the boy was very cunning. He said that Yunjae knew everything about influencing people. This was definitely not a battle of 2 against 9, so everything was planned. The hero wouldn't care if players just kept collecting individual points. This is exactly what was written in the diary. One team of 6 people disappeared. They dealt with people to take their coins and individual points. Those who passed the red door and became strong enough were Park Sung-soo's team. They would definitely continue to kill people for coins and points. Yoonjae and his partner couldn't win the team competition if they didn't do anything with Park Soo's team. It was dangerous, but now the guys had to kill not monsters, but people. When the 3rd day of training arrived, the brave hero continued his hunt for the Golden Goblin. He used various tricks and techniques to catch him, but kept running into monsters. The nasty goblin lured the guys to the huge creature, hoping that it would immediately kill the guys. The monster screamed throughout the forest and uprooted the tree to crush its enemies. The guy had only one attempt to knock down the thug. He abruptly took off and cut the monster into 2 parts. Now the Golden Goblin's defense was broken. The hide and seek was over. The little goblin immediately tried to escape, but Yunja, without hesitation, stabbed him with a sharp blade. Now he has finally managed to get the real key to unraveling the mysteries of Stage 4. Meanwhile, the first blood of innocent players was shed in the forest. Kim Do-hyun was not joking and was determined. He had no feelings. He was simply attracted by other people's coins and glasses. The guys begged for mercy. They were ready to give all their coins. If they had survived, things would have become more complicated, because by killing other players, you could assign individual points to yourself. Bastard Kim Do-hyun felt invincible. All the players were under his control. He pulled out his sword and was ready to kill everyone because it was possible. The goblin's bag was a real paradise for a kleptomaniac. Weapons, excellent armor, and many other valuable items shimmered in the sun. It was worth it for the hero to come this far. The tears of the goddess were the most valuable item for Yunjae in the goblin's bag. The bottle contained one of the 3 tears of the goddess, which gave a good effect. After use, it permanently increased the amount of mana and the speed of its recovery by 20%. After the beautiful tear of the goddess, the boy felt just fine. He restored his mana, its volume increased. Plus, he got back all the mana he had just spent on the ogre. Yu Jong-gyu picked out the Swordmaster passive skill from the bag that he got from the magic book. When using mana, it imparted a coating on the blade of the blade, increasing its cutting power. The sword that kills warriors also went to Yunjeng. The sword could increase cutting power and lower the level of mana consumption. The ring allowed the hero to use the mana concentrated in it as his own. The helpless players managed to survive, many were injured, but a brave warrior came to the rescue in time. He couldn't just leave such vile actions out of his sight. He only had 1 life, but he really had something to hope for. The young man was a master of his weapons. He coped well with even the most powerful creatures. His enemies were not much different from the forest bastards. Now it was a battle between good and evil. The swords of the heroes touched in battle. Kim Do-hyun was simply furious and tried with all his might to destroy his enemy, but Yunjae was stronger and pushed away the enemy's sword. The boy forcefully pushed the nasty thug away, but his team immediately intervened. They surrounded the young man from all sides, but he had enough strength to cope with them. Not everyone would come out of the battle alive. Both sides were strong and trained. The 4th stage turned out completely different from what was stated in the conditions. Training forced people to be real monsters. Kim Do-hyun could not let the small boy win. His pride and desire to be first made him attack his opponent with even greater force. The battle was gaining momentum. The gentleman did not even have time to get closer to his enemy and was already in the air. He received a strong blow to the chest, after which Yun Chung used his signature move and cut off his hand. Even the worst bastards deserved one last chance. Putting the sword to his throat, the hero allowed the villain to apologize to those he killed and wounded, but he flatly refused. Under the pressure of the sharp sword, the head with white hair instantly flew off the shoulders. Kim Do-hyun was killed in disgrace for his actions and helped the hero get rid of remorse. One of the killers managed to escape. He was going to make everyone beg for mercy. The guy wandered too far into the forest, where he came across a huge ogre. It was difficult to defeat him even with a whole team. At first, he just wanted to run away to survive, but suddenly he froze in surprise. Someone behind cut the monster's body with a long blade. The guy decided that he had been saved. Yuncheng's search was finally over. He punished everyone who went against him. The brave warrior did not even listen to the killer's excuses, and with one swing of his weapon took his life forever. The players were incredibly surprised that their saviors killed 9 people, and all those killed were close to the top 10. On the other hand, the number of people has decreased, and the team competition is now more difficult. The heroes hunted for more than 10 hours, exploring every room. They killed the most incredible animals and monsters. Without this, they would not have been able to win. The last day of Stage 4 of training has been completed. Yoonjae and Jongkyu tried for a long time and did everything in their power. All participants were tense, because the game promised that only 10 people had to survive. The team won by a small margin of 2,000 points. Loud cries of jubilation were heard. The players could not believe in the victory and rejoiced like children. Suddenly, the best result in team points was recorded, and the main character was praised for his fair actions. He found himself in a strange place, as if there was only space around him. The boy's efforts were not in vain. All stats were increased by 4 points and he was awarded 63 coins. From that moment on, within an hour, using the available coins, he could choose the desired thing. There was nothing in the store that raised stats, but the young man had enough items. He decided to use the coins to buy the Jacquard mana source, because it could be an addition to the bracelet. The training of the skill passed almost without a trace. The hero was surrounded by magical energy that even penetrated the bracelet. From this moment on, the 5th stage of S-class training began. A huge door appeared in front of the young winner, behind which something completely new was waiting for him. It could have been dangerous there, but the boy was only going to clean everything up. When he walked through the door, he immediately found himself in a strange place. Everything around looked like a tower surrounded by knights. The boy still could not understand where he was, but suddenly one of the guards called out to him. All the soldiers were fussing and fighting off enemies. The hero was not at all like them, so he attracted a lot of attention. The guards did not have time to deal with this. The task of the game was to protect the cursed fortress from the dead. There were too many skeletons. They surrounded the tower at breakneck speed. The armed soldiers fought with all their might and closed the shutters and entrances to the fortress, but their strength was not enough. The heavy wooden doors barely yielded to the pressure of the guards. The dead resisted and tried to break through. Yoonjae has always been distinguished by his courage. He decided to break out and cope on his own. The walking dead could not withstand the master's sharp sword, their bones scattered in all directions. The young man deftly controlled his weapon and used proven striking techniques. Suddenly, one of the skeletons grabbed the boy by the shoulder, pain pierced his body, and he immediately killed the nasty creature. The bone hand remained hanging on the shoulder, burning through the skin to the very bones. The hero realized that the monsters' bodies were made of poison, but they were slow and weak. He had to be very careful that everything went easily, because the dead were supposed to disappear with the dawn. The young man was confident in his abilities. He crushed a whole crowd of skeletons, and the rest disappeared at dawn. His new trial had begun. The tower guards did not know the guy, but Max thanked him for his help. He was responsible for leading the soldiers of the slot fortress. Without the help of a stranger, the tower would have long been in the possession of skeletons. Max was confused by the unusual name of this man who suddenly appeared and began to throw these piles of bones. Of course, he was grateful, but it all seemed too strange to him. Yoonjae couldn't tell the whole truth, so he didn't want to discuss it. He said that he would never be a hindrance to the fortress, and Max had nothing to worry about. For more than 10 days, the dead attacked the fortress. They were killed, but after a while, they appeared again. This went on nightly. There was no end to the skeletons. The person in charge said that skeletons were known to come at sunset and leave at daylight. No one knew where these corpses came from or who they really were. But the fortress had hope. In 10 days, help was supposed to arrive, but for this, it was necessary to hold out. The problem was that the guards were not confident in their abilities. The hero thought it was strange. It didn't seem like S-class difficulty level. Surviving 10 days against skeletons was too easy a task, suitable for lower classes. Max asked the young man to stay for only 10 days to help the fortress. Without his support, the guards would not have been able to cope on their own. The hero agreed, but before that he needed to leave. As night fell, uninvited bone guests came to the fortress again. Yoonjae still had not returned, so Max believed that he had escaped and sent his troops to defend the fortress. Suddenly, one of the guards shouted loudly. Someone near the tower was already fighting against the skeletons. The heroes could not deceive the poor people and leave them in trouble, so they returned back. It was raining heavily, clouds covered the sky, and skeletons were breaking into the tower more and more. Suddenly, the young man left his post and ran inside the tower. The guards immediately closed the gate behind him. Max was simply furious and sent the boy back to fight against the dead, but the hero came for a reason. He found the reason for their appearance. It turned out that a group was hiding in the forest wasteland, summoning the dead. The tower warriors said that the boys should have gotten rid of them as soon as he found their lair. The young man led the guards into the forest, but Max did not want to leave such an important task to a stranger. This time, he wanted to end it completely and took the best warriors with him. The warriors of the slot fortress were almost there. No one knew what was ahead, so Yunjae was not sure that he could protect people. He decided to focus on completing the last stage. In the forest, they discovered a group of people who hid their faces under black robes. A magic circle was drawn in the middle of the forest, through which skeletons were summoned. The magicians told the tower guards to gallop as much as they wanted in the light of the sun, but as soon as darkness came, the dead would kill everyone. Ignoring the warriors, the magicians continued their ritual. They needed strength. They had protected themselves well with the magical dome, but the guards were desperately trying to break it. The hero had a bad feeling. He needed to deal with everything as soon as possible. He was sure that the magicians would not be able to summon the skeletons, and using his sharp sword, destroyed the protective dome. The brave tower guards broke through the barrier, but as soon as they entered the magic circle, the incredible happened. Strong magic surrounded their bodies, and they began to seem to dissolve into thin air. Strange feelings penetrated through their bodies. People turned into strange substances that fell into pieces. They needed to retreat as quickly as possible. At this moment, demonic energy came out, and a huge monster appeared in the circle. He was black as pitch, and his eyes glowed red like those of the devil. The monster wanted to know the reason why he was summoned. One of the magicians said that it was the hero's fault that he was disturbed, and then the bloodthirsty warlock grabbed him with all his might. The huge monster did not spare the magician and devoured him whole. No one was allowed to disturb the warlock just like that. Suddenly he noticed that the young boy harbored mana within himself. The brave guy decided to confront the monster. He had no choice but to pour mana into the shackles and defeat him with one blow. It worked on the ogre, but it was a completely different opponent. Yunjia didn't even have time to take a step, and the warlock seemed to teleport from one place to another. He dealt a crushing blow, but the boy managed to escape from under his clutches. There was no point in stalling for time. The warrior needed to finish this battle before sunset. He used half of his mana at a time and used a sharp sword to cut the monster's paw. The young man did not strike with full force, but it had an effect. He could win if he hit the vital point next time. The monster was not very upset about losing his paw. To stay alive, the hero had to try hard. The monster was quite huge in size and had incredible strength to easily destroy an ordinary person. As soon as the monster wanted to grab the boy, he stopped the huge paw with his sword. The demon's power was so enormous that the blade fell apart. Now the young man was in danger. The sword could not withstand the pressure and burst. The warlock immediately slammed onto the ground with crushing force. Yunjia jumped aside sharply and did not allow himself to die. He realized that the sword had split due to the accumulation of damage received during the battle with the dead. The hero played it safe and took a second sword with him, but the monster was already waiting for the right moment. The monstrous warlock could teleport, so he was invulnerable and took the boy by surprise. He was going to tear his flesh and chew him and turn his soul into a pathetic ghost. The hero decided to act, otherwise he would have known death in all its beauties. He jumped sharply into the air, dodged the blow, and approached the enemy as close as possible. In one motion, he cut off the devil's limb. The advantage of the devilish creature was that it had the ability to teleport. In a second, he was already behind the man and wanted to eat him. Cutting off the limbs did not give any result, so the brave boy decided to act quickly and aim straight for the throat. Swinging harder, he properly charged the monster with the ball right into the neck. Having received 2 blows, the bloodthirsty warlock no longer felt the breath of mana from the man. He decided to end the young man once and for all. It seemed that the end had come. In the most unexpected moment, the hero used the mana conservation ring, which allowed him to use the concentrated mana as his own and cause critical damage. Death was close, but the brave warrior did a great job and killed the formidable monster. Now the evil was over, and the huge carcass of the warlock fell to the ground with a roar. Max could not believe his eyes because even a team of guards could not cope with such a thug. The hero said that he was just lucky. The monster was summoned in an imperfect form and he received harm from the sun. At that moment, the monster said that he would never have given in to such a guy if he had a different shell. He believed that the price to pay for his suddenly acquired power would be great. The young man did not listen to the stupid conversations of his victim. He told the monster to shut up and stuck the tip of his sword into him. S-class training was completed. The completion rate reached 100%. Because of the warlock, the fortress could have big problems. He was the god of death, a demon who fed on living and dead people. On this note, the training came to an end. Behind the door lay a path that gave the hero a chance for another meeting. Yunjae found himself in a place surrounded by pink clouds. Everything around resembled a real paradise, and suddenly the hero reached a place where he met a huge man. He resembled a god. The man introduced himself as a vassal of the king. His name was Arian. He saw a lost bracelet on the boy's hand and decided to find out how it got here. The young man replied that he himself did not know for sure. The hero passed by a place shrouded in fog, and then saw the temple and went inside. This did not seem like a lie, so Arian conveyed the king's favor to the boy. When Yunje was finally offered great power, he undoubtedly agreed to accept it. But even if he were to successfully take possession of this enormous power, it would be followed by an equal responsibility. The guy did not know what this power was, but he was ready to accept this share. There were those people whom he really wanted to meet, and for them, he was ready to do anything. The king's vassal touched the boy with his finger, and severe pain pierced his body. The pain was mortal, but if the hero truly wanted power, he needed to survive it. The boy fainted from pain, and then got up again, and crawled forward. He practically could not cope with the wild pain, but he was driven only by the desire to see his beloved wife and daughter again. When the young man ran out of strength, he only thought about being killed and ending this torment. Suddenly, he heard a voice from above that asked him about the real reason why he had to survive. His wife and sweet Mina were the only reason he wanted to wake up every day. The heroes could not die. He needed to survive and meet them again. After the vision, the guy suddenly woke up and managed to survive. Now the heart of a king sat in his body, but in reality, everything was not so simple. It's time to leave. Arian said that the shackles, the source of mana, and the heart were gifts from the king. The gentleman said goodbye to the boy and teleported him to another place. The training was completed. All the players immediately found themselves among the high rocks. They were transported to the village of the beginnings of Melon, but they did not understand at all where they had ended up. There were a lot of foreigners around, but you could understand what they were talking about. All the heroes were heatedly discussing what was happening, but suddenly fell silent. A stern gentleman in armor came out to them. There were people here not only who came from previous stages, but also those who came a long time ago. Alvin Walker was a member who found himself in this family world years ago. People were frightened because they did not understand what was happening. They attacked the young man with accusations that he had created a transparent wall through which it was impossible to go outside. Yunjae was surprised that this person got there earlier, because there were no traces of disappearances left on the ground. A lot of people disappeared at that time. The girl Lois erected a barrier in the way of the players. Alvin believed that the players were confused, did not realize what kind of world it was, and having decided that it was all over, were unable to get home. Upon hearing this, the players were simply furious. They were sure that this young man had brought them into this world, so they blamed him and demanded freedom. Unable to bear the loud barking of the participants, Alvin shouted loudly and ordered everyone to be silent. In fact, people had no idea why this world was built or why they were here. He said the wall was created to protect them. This place was so dangerous that players would remember the training as a funny joke. The wall was intended to prevent them from foolishly sticking their noses into a difficult location. The young man described further actions along the way. They were all heading to the village of Nacha Melon, and trouble awaited the guys on the other side. But even on the way there could be monsters that were much stronger than those that the guys had met before. The road was long. It led to huge mountains, behind which lived an angel and a demon. Alvin said that they were the ones who posed the danger. The angel and demon were far superior to other monsters, but for now the players did not need to know about this. The first village in the world, in which the guys were supposed to live from now on, looked simply amazing. From that moment on, places to stay and basic food in Melon were free for them, but only for 10 days. After this time, finding a bed and a profession would become their own concern, but the players were still delighted with the size and beauty of the village. The Skyscraper clan took care of all these amenities and protection. The village was so huge, and the rooms were small, like boogers from the nose. The players realized that the Skyscraper clan did not have the means for better housing. There were even people in the clan who loved to do charity work, so it was possible to make a good living here. It could also mean that it would be difficult to survive here without such help. Free accommodation and food were only provided for 10 days, so during this time, Yunjae decided to do something and return. But returning was a secondary task for him. The most important thing was to meet again with Yun Kyung and Mina, without whom the boy could no longer imagine his life. When the hero decided to reopen the notebook of his deceased wife, he discovered that the pages that had not previously been turned over were now covered with writing. What he read made him reconsider everything that had happened. Now the boy roughly understood how to act, but the diary did not contain any information about the angel and the demon. Even with the diary, there were too many unknowns. In the middle of the night, the heroes suddenly woke up from a strong knock on the door. The unknown person asked to open the doors for a while and said that he had some valuable information. He needed Yunjae, but this situation was not described in the book. The hero immediately tensed. The unknown frightened him. He grabbed his sword and began to listen. The stranger behind the door introduced himself as Din from the Bram clan and came to recruit the boy. Dean said the boys shouldn't have worried. Regardless, they were under the protection of the Skyscraper clan, but conflicts in the village between members were prohibited. When the guys finally let the stranger through the door, he said that there had long been rumors that Yunjae had proven himself in training. The job of a large clan was to find especially gifted people. Dean invited the young man to discuss the proposal to join the clan. The head of the clan was already waiting outside. He smiled widely, but something made him show up so late. This aroused suspicion, because there would have been time during the day. The master's words did not convince the hero. He didn't know what the Bram clan was, but he sent Dean back. If necessary, he planned to find the clan himself. The refusal made the gentleman very angry. His expression immediately changed. He told the guys to just follow him in a good way. In fact, the Bram clan was just a lie. Yunja immediately saw through the intruder. The clan was a bunch of petty thugs. If he hadn't read about this clan in the diary, he would have agreed. There was no forgiveness for the scum who lured unknown newcomers and killed them for items. The hero was very smart and saved himself from death. Dean offered to give him all the items in exchange for salvation, but the boy was not going to cave. He threatened the stranger with a sword and violence. At that moment, the nasty Dean pulled out his weapon and attacked the hero. He was very agile and fast, so it was hard to keep up with his movements. The enemy was incomparable. He had excellent control of his body and weapons. Using various techniques, he struck two heroes with force. Zhang Guayu barely had time to fend off strong blows with his sword. At this moment, Yun Zheng managed to seize the moment. He grabbed a knife and rushed into battle. With a sharp movement of his weapon, he dealt a crushing blow, but suddenly disappeared into the enemy. It was as if he had the skill of teleportation. Dean realized that the newcomer was not just at the level of the standout in training. The fight with the boy was more tiring than he thought. However, it was necessary to finish quickly, so the gentleman released demonic energy and disappeared. Now the uninvited guest became truly invisible. From now on, players could not see him when he merged with the darkness. He was going to kill the two yellow-faced guys without them even noticing. As soon as he crept up to the hero and wanted to attack, the boy immediately thrust a sharp sword into him. It was simply incredible. With his abnormal mana level, he even recognized the stealth skill. The situation was becoming too dangerous. Dean urgently needed to get out of there. He tried to quickly get to the door to get out, but the hero immediately stabbed him with a sword. Dean Alidor spent 2 whole years in the game. He was known as a bandit who attacked newly arrived newcomers and was a member of a clan of assassins. The rumor of reprisals against him spread throughout the village, and Alvin Walker came to the heroes. Opening the wanted book, Alvin said that the reward for the guy was 30 gold. The bastard Dean was wanted all this time, and in accordance with the severity of the crime, a reward was assigned, which now went to the heroes. Suddenly, unexpectedly for everyone, Walker invited the guys to join the Skyscraper clan. He had never seen such guys who would grab someone like Dean, so the master considered Yun Zheng to be a real diamond. This opportunity could not be missed, and for a newcomer, the offer to join the clan was a great chance. Moreover, if we were talking about a clan of skyscrapers, then there was nothing to think about. The members of the Skyscraper clan admired how the guys managed to grab Dean, because they were completely inexperienced. Moreover, there was no applicant yet for them to take a newcomer into their clan. Alvin was absolutely serious about recruitment. He was sure that the young hero had not caught Dean by luck. The little one arrived in a very interesting place. It was best for newcomers to simply join the clan without question, but Yunjae refused. Alvin was shocked by the refusal, and realized that the boy had better options. The hero was not a newcomer who had just arrived in this world. The reward was supposed to arrive in the evening, so Alvin asked the guys to pay for housing first. In parting, he said that the guys could always find him in the Skyscraper clan if they suddenly changed their minds. By evening, the guys received a reward of 30 gold pieces. The harvest was even greater than they expected. One such coin in Korea would cost 1,000,000 won. Zhang Qiu said that he refused to join the clan because he didn't deserve it. Dean Alidor was caught by his partner, so the guy did not want empty gratitude. The hero had one idea in stock, however. He still did not know whether it was better than joining the Skyscraper clan. He invited his friend and ally to meet with the Supreme Mage, because he was already on his way there. In Melon Square, there was a huge white portal, which was guarded by the Supreme Mage. You had to pay 50 gold to use the portal. The old man didn't help for free. The heroes did not have enough coins to use the portal, and when the magician was about to leave, the hero suddenly told him his proposal. He promised to find the location of the laboratory. The old man became wary. No one knew about this except him. He wondered who these two were, but Yunjae said that they just decided to help find the laboratory. Because of one oath, Mr. Abram could not leave this place. He promised to reward the heroes appropriately if their search was successful. However, the old man was not a fool. At parting, he decided to tell the guys that he would give them a taste of pain worse than death itself if they decided to plan something. In any case, finding a laboratory was better than joining the skyscraper clan. Yunjae learned about the laboratory through village rumors. They said that the old man used it before. He killed people and used them for magical ingredients. For this, the supreme mage was nicknamed the Human Butcher. This news scared Zhang Jiyu to death. He began to panic and fear death. In fact, there was no reason to worry because the old man could not get out. After some time, the heroes finally found what they were looking for. In front of them was a huge rock, in which there was an entrance to the laboratory in the form of a hole. It seemed that it was impossible to find a laboratory in such a place. According to the diary, the opening of the Abram laboratory location caused a stir in Melon, since nothing like this had ever happened here. In addition, the find itself turned out to be right in the rock not far from the village. However, it was not even the fact that this gaming area was discovered that was significant. It was her main reward that attracted most of her attention. It was a collection of experimental materials that Archmage Abram had been studying for years. The Skyscraper clan came to the conclusion that the effect of it must have been colossal, since the height of its level was immeasurable. Meanwhile, the heroes boldly explored the new location of the lost laboratory. Yunjae was sorry to refuse the Skyscraper clan's offer, but by contacting them, it would be more difficult to obtain a top-notch reward. On the way, the hero said that the magician could not find the laboratory himself because he had lost all his memories. This could have happened due to some powerful spell, after which he became the guardian of the portal. Moving further through the cave, the guys came across very strange things. These searches were kept secret. Suddenly they froze as if made of stone. Ahead, they saw a whole bunch of dead people. At that moment, a vibration was felt in the air, the ground shook, and a strong creaking of bones was heard. The dead rose from their knees, as if they had been simply sleeping sweetly all this time. Now it became clear why the cave was so quiet and empty. There was a real secret there. A flock of cave creatures immediately asked for the guys. They were very aggressive and cruel. Without hesitation, the brave heroes rushed back at them. Young Yunjae not only had excellent command of his weapons and techniques, but also had incredible skills that allowed him to scatter several dead people in a matter of seconds. Everything went better than he expected. Only the mood was now bad. The hero quickly dealt with a whole gang of cave creatures, and a real monster turned them into such monsters. In one of the corpses, the hero found a bright diamond of the chimera's mana. The mana stone used by Archmage Abram to create the chimera contained an impressive amount of mana, the energy of which caused the chimera to move. Several days have passed since the heroes traveled through the cave. My strength was running low. This was not a place where I could rest. After a short break, they finally came to the last door. Inside was a reward for the first person to find this place. When the hero was finally burned inside, they froze. In front of them was that same lost laboratory which was hidden from prying eyes. At this time, screams were heard from the Skyscraper clan. They had been looking for Abram's location for 2 months, but everything was unsuccessful. Alvin was furious. The Skyscraper clan, consisting solely of the elite, had been of no use during this time. Even the bastards from the clan of murderers rampaging through Milan. So the master ordered his assistant to get away and find out at least something about the laboratory. Abram's laboratory was of incredible size, a lot of information was stored there, and terrible experiments were clearly carried out. In the middle of the room, there was a huge flask with a man in the liquid. After looking around a little, the boy finally found a collection of research results from the Supreme Mage Abram. The blue and red flasks were kept behind the door of a cabinet that resembled a bookcase. Among them was one purple vessel, about which nothing was said in the diary of the hero's deceased wife. Despite this, the boy took everything that was there. The goal was achieved. It was time to return. At this moment, the guys noticed that the person in the flask opened his eyes slightly. They realized that he was clearly alive and decided to immediately break the glass. The Supreme Mage was extremely surprised that the heroes found the location of the laboratory. Before talking about this place, the guys wanted to know what experiments the old man conducted there. The gentleman only remembered that he was doing research in the laboratory, but he had no memories of what and where exactly it was. He only wanted to find the laboratory because it belonged to him. Yunjae told Abram about the place where his secret laboratory was located, and he rewarded the boy as promised. The first reward was a teleportation scroll, which allowed the hero to move to the desired village. The second reward was the 198 B-class attribute ring, the fruit of the work of the Supreme Mage. The ring was under a special spell, the powers of which were capable of imparting the desired property. Abram immediately disappeared, but the young hero was not worried about letting him go so easily. In the guy's hands was a possible reason why the old man was looking for a laboratory. After half a month spent at the location, the guys saved on paying for the portal and snatched themselves a nicer room. They were going to take a breath, and then look at the plan of skyscrapers, so that they would be decently rewarded for discovering the location. Yunjae gave his partner a fragile life potion and a purified mana potion and told him to drink first the red one and then the blue one. This was supposed to pump up his body, so the boy immediately drank the contents. The bodies of the heroes were immediately filled with wild power. They felt a frantic surge of energy that quickly spread in the body. Their health, agility, physical defense, and strength were increased by one. The young man began to doubt that it was worth drinking everything at once. He took these potions because they were supposed to raise the level of his body, but they seemed to burn him from the inside. It took a long time, but the guys did a great job. Zhang Jiwayu almost saw a problem, but ultimately his stats, health, and mana increased. In fact, Abram was a real genius for creating such a miracle. The page of the notebook had not been turned over before, but now the young man could see what was written there. When he read all the notes, he realized that things had gone awry. Taking the sword with him, Yunjae rushed to the skyscraper clan as quickly as possible. Every second counted, so the guy loudly pounded on the door, and when they finally opened it, he said that he wanted to urgently see Elvis. Elvis was not the kind of person you met by simply knocking blatantly on his door. There was a certain procedure. When the gentleman heard that it was in Abram's location, he immediately became interested. Walker himself came out to the loud noise. He was simply delighted with the news he heard about the found laboratory. Yunji told him that Abram was soon supposed to attack Melon in a new body. It sounded simply unthinkable, and the clan members could not believe their ears. At that moment, something even more amazing happened. The heroes saw a real miracle before them. Abram appeared before them in a completely new guise. Now his body looked exactly like the body of the man from the laboratory. Then the heroes could not harm him, but had to destroy the vessel. Possessing a new body, the Archmage acquired incredible abilities. In a matter of seconds, he immediately attacked and fired one punch at the main character. The boy managed to react and managed to dodge. Yunjir said that if the old man came for the potions, then they were already gone. Abram could easily have done them again, because he had no plans to stop. He wanted to take away the boy's shackles and could easily have taken his hand. The old man in the new body was taciturn. He wanted to finish what he started as quickly as possible. Using his skills, he directed dozens of sharp stones at the boy, which flew at great speed. Now the hero urgently needed to do something. When Yunja's life was on a knife's edge, brave Alvin suddenly covered it with his body. Thanks to his magical powers, he managed to make sharp stones crumble into pieces. Seeing that the man who could not leave the village suddenly disappeared, Walker believed that Abram was no longer there. He could not understand how the old man was able to lift the curse and gain a new body. Yunja could not tolerate the old man's impudence and rushed off to destroy him. Abram used his skills and thousands of bright lightning burst out. They were beyond the power of ordinary beginners. This could be the hero's last battle. The young man was fearless. He was not afraid of anyone. With one swing of his sword, he dealt a crushing blow to the enemy. The whole secret of his power was in the magic ring donated by the Archmage. A strong blow fell on the old man in a second and touched only his cheek. His ring turned out to be quite useful in the hands of the enemy, so he wanted to punish the boy. At that moment, one of the members of the Skyscraper clan flew up from behind and wanted to destroy the ugly old man with one blow. The magician had a good reaction and managed to dodge, so the gentleman hit the ground with his fist. Lois arrived just in time. She managed to grab the old man with her magical abilities while he was still in the jump. She created protective walls around him that prevented him from moving and kept him in the air so that he would not escape. The Skyscraper clan was too easy a target for the Archmage, but Yunjae and Zhang Jiwayu were too dangerous for him. The old man decided to retreat. He used his teleportation capabilities and slowly moved away. The heroes had to let him go. Now the decision was made to simply catch him. But for now, Alvin wanted to discuss something. He was sure that the guys knew about what was happening. The four of them gathered to talk about what happened. Zhang Qiu immediately expressed dissatisfaction that he drank potions that were actually made with the help of hundreds of human lives. Alvin said that if the hero's strength and magic were the result of those potions, then it could still be understood. Whatever one may say, the guys were still not beginners. In fact, Abram wanted to use potions after changing his body. He planned to drink them to become more powerful. These potions could increase his strength and magic levels to incredible levels. It was known that Abram, for some unknown reason, had a strong contempt for people. Yunjae knew that the old man would definitely try to vent his rage and get the ingredients he needed. For a long time, the magician was cursed, which is why he guarded the portal in the village. Somehow he managed to escape, but the most important thing was that the young hero made new potions. This is why he came to ask the clan for help. In Alvin's opinion, it was quite shameless to do this after the boy stole the potions. He knew that the old man would soon appear in Melon. Suddenly, the gentleman was alarmed by the fact that the young man knew too much information. A newbie couldn't know that much. Yunjae revealed too much information, but showing his wife's notebook was too dangerous. At that moment, one of the clan members, who was responsible for protecting the tower, ran into the room. He was scared and brought bad news. A whole horde of monsters was approaching outside. It was simply unthinkable. The bloodthirsty monsters rushed forward at full speed, destroying everything in their path. Their number could not be counted. They looked invincible. The players were very scared and defenseless against such creatures. They defended themselves as best they could. Suddenly, one of the monsters suddenly attacked the man, but immediately hit his face against the wall. It was the protective barrier of the Skyscraper clan. An emergency was declared in Melon. Lois surrounded the village with a protective barrier. The main goal of the clan was to protect the city and the chimeras, which needed to be dealt with. The heads of each district had to follow the Skyscraper clan's instructions. Lois's voice could be heard throughout Melon, and Jong-gu felt less cool than the others. In his eyes, everyone was very cool, and he still had a lot to learn. The guy was sad, but understood that Alvin Walker was right in leaving him in the village. Brave heroes went into battle. As fighters of an elite unit, they had to finish off the monsters as quickly as possible. Then they could stop the attack and save the entire city. Without hesitation, Yunjae immediately rushed into battle. He was excellent with weapons and was one of the best on the team. Surprisingly, the wild monsters were weak. The boy fought against them without much difficulty. An entire army of chimeras was rushing at breakneck speed straight towards Melon. Their appearance was unknown, but a real team of titans could easily deal with them. A clash was inevitable. Each member of the team had their own personal ability that had destructive power. Alvin Walker did not move from his place. He seemed to cut the air with one wave of his hand and cut several monsters into pieces. The master was an incredible person. Meanwhile, Abram has already taken possession of his laboratory. The souls were not collected quickly enough. By this time, he planned to receive hundreds of thousands of souls. There was too little time. The bastard standing in his way would soon show up. The old man needed to hurry up. He decided to create at least one elixir. By this time, the Skyscraper clan had already entered the cave that led to the laboratory. It took Yunjae a whole week to get to the end of the cave, but now the heroes had to do it in 2 days. Hordes of chimeras were already on their way. Lois decided to simply destroy the monsters. She used a mass skill that shot a stream of fire towards the cave. This created an incredible explosion that consumed the entire space. Now it was clear that the guys were on a completely different level. The girl did an excellent job and incinerated a gang of creatures. Even Abram would have had difficulties with them. Inside the chimeras were mana stones that allowed them to move. The stone was quite weak, so it was obvious that it was only a temporary solution to keep the blood circulating in their bodies. What was more important was that these devices were still in the monsters. This meant that the old magician had been preparing all this for a long time. Walker finally realized that Abram was planning to attack Melon. On their way, the guys met a lot more monsters. All of them were of different sizes and varied in strength. For the heroes, this was not a problem, but just another opportunity to show perseverance and patience. Zhang Jiwayu was so obsessed with fighting against monsters that he sometimes let his guard down. One of the chimeras greedily wanted to attack him from behind, but Lois managed to stop her. There was no way to do this without a team fight. Lois noticed that the young man was very tired and suggested that he take a break. He always wanted to follow Yunjae, so he fought on par with those people who had been here for 2 years, although he had just arrived. Upon arrival at the laboratory, the Skyscraper clan saw a terrifying picture. Abram felt like a fish out of water. In his laboratory, he was going to put an end to his enemies forever and looked like he was possessed. At that moment, the old man began his actions. In a second, he managed to make the guys fall face first into the ground. Among them, only Alvin was holding on with all his strength and was still conscious. The magic circle was the creation of the Archmage. It was capable of taking human souls. The attack on Melon was just a way to get even more ingredients. By reducing the radius of action, the bastard increased the power of the circle and could now take the soul even from a living creature. He was going to use all resources to carry out his plan. Alvin was amused by the fact that the Archmage had to rely on a magic circle. This greatly affected the old man, and he directed all his fiery energy at the young man to take his life. Suddenly, the old man felt severe pain. Yunjae managed to move and strike the magician with a strong blow that shed his blood. The Archmage did not expect to see this. After activating the deadly magic circle, the hero did not feel anything. He was protected by Jacquard's shackles, his heart, and the magic formula. At that moment, Alvin noticed that the boy could move and tried to buy time. While Abram did not look in his direction, Yunjae decided to seize the opportunity and use the only potion. The old man's magic and attention were too focused on the magic circle, but if he left it, Alvin would immediately attack it. Abram decided to deal with the guy in shackles as quickly as possible. The main character noticed the right moment and immediately rushed to the attack. With one movement, he cut his enemy into two parts. The old man's head immediately flew to the side. It was simply incredible. But Abram immediately disappeared, as if he had not been killed. He had crazy energy that teleported him behind the hero. Now the young man was in real danger. The magician immediately dealt a crushing blow. A strong fiery explosion pushed the boy away. At the very last moment, he managed to use hardening to at least slightly protect himself from the blow. The clan members were in no condition to fight, but the brave Yunje stood on his feet and was ready to fight. The crew's lives were now in his hands. Abram controlled the circle and cast spells at the same time. His magic was incomparable. At this pace, the hero quickly got tired, but with the last of his strength, he ran away from the enemy's blows. Suddenly, the experienced magician decided to end these games and catch the young man like a mouse in a mousetrap. He shackled his legs in magical shackles, which made the guy unable to move. When the old man wanted to destroy the boy once and for all, his magic circle was suddenly destroyed. He fell to the ground with a crash, his soul being consumed. At this moment, he noticed that the soul-sealing potion was almost used up. He wanted to give himself the option of returning to his old body if any side effects occurred. The hero got ahead of the old man and decided to borrow the potion. It was impossible to force Abram to drink the potion, so the boy applied it to his blade. The magician's soul would try to return to its old body, but thanks to the magic circle, this did not happen. The situation turned against the supreme mage. First, he needed to stop the magic circle, but in this state, he was powerless. Stopping its effects and returning to the old body was his main goal. With the last of his strength, Abram asked to be taken to the circle to stop him. This could have saved the hero's comrades, but the boy swung his sword and cut off the old man's hand. It was too dangerous to trust the archmage, because he had already shown his true nature. Yunche couldn't afford to be fooled. He suddenly jumped up and gave the old man a crushing kick in the stomach. Soon the hero took care of his comrades on his own and led them to a safe place. It was humiliating for them, but the boy was going to cope with the chimeras and the nasty magician on his own. Finally, the time for the truth came. Yunje was interested in the question of who helped the magician regain his memories of the laboratory. He wanted to hear the answer, but the old man refused to cooperate and received strong blows for this. Abram claimed that he had absolutely no idea how the old memories came to him. He said that a stranger in a robe handed him a piece of paper and immediately left. Now the old man had to answer where he learned about the shackles. Otherwise, he would face physical violence. He had no choice but to reveal that he had already seen the bracelet. The man who dragged the magician into this wore the exact same shackles. Yunze asked his last question. He wanted to know why the old man killed the people whose bodies were in the cave. Because of his fear of death, the old man had to reveal that he actually did not want to take so many lives. He needed test subjects. Initially, the Supreme Sorcerer had no idea of using people in his experiments. But then they came and destroyed everything, which forced him to become a cruel monster. Bloodthirsty Abram began taking human lives to collect ingredients, and then he enjoyed killing them. He also believed that the holy hero was also a murderer, and had taken just as many lives on the way to the laboratory. The brave warrior took people's lives, but only those who deserved it. For his deeds, the nasty old man was punished and received a strong blow to the head. This was fair, because everyone who died at his hands had a family and enjoyed life. There was no point in leaving such a bastard alive. He deserved the most severe punishment. The hero became his judge and sent the old man straight to hell with the last blow. The news of Abram's death quickly spread throughout the area, and it reached the people in black robes. It happened much faster than they expected. The magician did not manage to kill even a couple of thousand people. Abram was old, but truly strong. Even this did not save him, because the people defended themselves better than he had expected. There were strong fighters in their ranks. The people in robes realized that someone had disturbed him. There was nothing else for strangers to do here. It was a shame to return without any results, but they had no choice. They had better opportunities for you in the future. Meanwhile, something amazing happened in the village of Melon. Zhang Jiyu fought fiercely against the cruel monsters, but suddenly they seemed to change. The chimeras stopped the war and ran away as if they were scared. After the brutal massacre, the clan lost about 20,000 people. Most of them were new recruits, and due to their lack of experience, they had the hardest time of all. One of the Skyscraper clan members said that the heads of the village's districts had agreed to buy the mana stones extracted from the chimeras. Most likely, they would be useful to them and would be considered a reward. Alvin was very upset that he decided to take his assistants with him. The master was not harmed in any way, but Yeshirhuo was unconscious, as if she no longer had a soul. The main character finished all his business in Melon and decided to go to another village. Lois was upset that now the guys wouldn't join in their plan, so she invited them over. Yunjae was about to go to Darkmu. Usually every village had a clan in charge of security, and in Darkmu it was the Assassin clan. Lawlessness reigned there. It was the area with the highest crime rate. As a farewell, Alvin gave the players their reward. It was the most useful thing he found in the laboratory. Teleportation rings were needed to restore the portal, so the clan gave the guys something else. The 98 A-class clockwork was the result of the work of the Supreme Magician. It allowed you to regulate your own time and consume accumulated mana depending on your skill level. Using a teleportation spell, the brave heroes were transported to the village of Darkmu. The killer village was 2 times larger than the previous one. It was very gloomy and foggy, as if this place was from a detective story. The young man chose this place for a reason. He did not need a showdown with monsters. In this mysterious village, there could be someone who killed his family, so this was the boy's only chance. That terrible day changed the hero's life forever. That evening, he was at work, as always, but on this particular day, he was a little late. Suddenly, the work was interrupted by a phone call. When the boy answered the phone, he happily wanted to tell his wife that there was too much work today. But on the phone, he heard quiet requests for help. Yunjae immediately jumped up and ran to help. His wife's voice played endlessly in his head. My heart was pounding wildly in my chest, and it felt like it was about to jump out. At that moment, the young man suddenly woke up. He realized that it was all a dream. Nightmares had been tormenting him for a long time, but he had never seen anything like this before. He decided to go into the room of his wife and daughter, thinking that they were still sleeping. The boy happily opened the doors, but the picture in the room shocked him. The whole room was covered in blood, and his wife's lifeless body lay on the floor. It seemed that Yunjae was going crazy. He ran out of work and ran as fast as he could to save his family. What he saw made his soul freeze in place. His breath was taken away, and the lump in the city was so huge that the boy could not breathe. Tears flowed from his eyes. The young man bowed his head in front of the cut-up corpse of Yun General. In my head, I heard the loud laughter of the killer, who with great pleasure stabbed the poor bodies of his daughter and wife. At this moment, the hero could not restrain his emotions. He screamed at the top of his lungs so hard that the capillaries in his eyes burst. He refused to believe that some bastard had killed his innocent family who had recently been nearby. From that very ill-fated day, the guy was tormented by terrible nightmares. He woke up with a wild cry. It was all just a dream, but it caused terrible torment to the young man. The next day, at exactly noon, the guys gathered at the square in the center of the village where entrance exams were being held for all newcomers who wanted to join the clan of killers. Now they had to defend their lives themselves, if it was dear to them. The people had already pulled up, so finally Harold Shipman from the murder clan spoke in front of the whole rabble. He was called a psychopathic killer. He was pleased with the large number of notorious scum who were rushing into the clan this year. The master was cruel and said that members of one clan were protected by a ban on killing comrades. And although some participants came here specifically in search of this rule, Harold did not care. When the entrance test finally began, the gentleman scattered thousands of flyers with the person's picture on them. Everything was quite simple. The players had to bring the head of the person depicted on the piece of paper. Only those who brought their heads along with a piece of paper with the task would be able to pass. Finding a person in a large city was problematic. In addition, it was unknown who was hunting for the heroes. This task was tricky. In addition to the test participants, the photos contained the faces of people living in Darkmu, so the heroes had to look carefully. One of the angry participants was literally seething with anger. He smashed everyone in his path and took their papers. He wanted to collect a stack of these sheets so that at least one of the people depicted would come across to him. It was dangerous to stay in such a place. The heroes decided to simply leave. Zhang Guiyu couldn't believe that the bastard was taking other people's missions and killing people to improve his chances. There was nothing to be surprised about. This is what the test was designed for. Yunjae assumed that the killer he was looking for could also take part in this test. Many people ended up here, but in reality, people remained in the dark. When people got into this world, in reality they stopped remembering their existence. After the death of his wife and daughter, the hero started work and looked for the culprit like a madman. But at some point he dropped everything and returned to the company. It was as if he had involuntarily come to terms with the fact that he would never find the killer. What was incredible was that for some reason the guy still had memories of him. Now he decided that he had to catch the culprit, no matter what it cost him, even at the cost of his life. According to the assumption, Yunjae might not have found the killer due to the fact that he ended up in this world. Every year at this time, the Assassin clan held a test, so there was a high probability that this bastard took part in it. However, if the heroes were just looking for that guy, then they didn't have to take the test themselves. Zhang Jiyu didn't want to kill innocent people for a test. Passing the task was a separate issue and the reason why it had to be done. The guys were so busy talking that they didn't notice how they were surrounded by a gang of thugs. And why did I need to know the reasons? They just wanted to kill the guys. But the heroes were not cowardly either. Yunjae was not afraid. He decided to ask the bad guys if they knew about the killer who left the X mark on his victims. The conversation did not work out, and the armed bastards attacked the young man. The sharp knife was too close to the hero at high speed, but suddenly the hero used his fantastic skills and dodged the blow. The enemy launched several more blows, but it was all useless. Yunjae's speed was amazing. The brave warrior was unperturbed. He could push away any blow from his enemies and easily dealt one bad guy a strong blow with his sword. The man was thrown to the side with force. At that moment, the second enemy flew up to the boy at great speed and wanted to stab him. His body immediately froze and the sharp blade stopped right in front of the hero's nose. The guy had an incredible ability that saved him. He acquired the skill of controlling time. The flow slowed down only from his point of view. The clock mechanism allowed you to regulate your own time. The enemies froze completely. Now the time limit was about 2 minutes. Due to excessive mana consumption, the hero could not use it for a long time. However, his leg object provided stunning possibilities. Swinging with all his might, the boy inflicted critical damage on the frozen enemy. The petrified body was immediately thrown back. Yunjae dealt with everyone in the alley, but still wanted to survive as much information as possible from the bad guys. He grabbed one of them by the throat and demanded to tell the truth about the killer. At that time, the man also lived in Anyang, where there lived a serial maniac who left an X mark. But he ended up in this world before the killer stopped. The bad guy was willing to tell everything to stay alive. Now the hero finally found out that the culprit was now in Darkmu. He also ended up in this world and had been hunting for the boy all this time, which is why he hired killers in the alley. The gentleman said that he had already been to the place where the killer stopped. There was a whole mountain of corpses marked with an X. After hearing this, the boy was going to go there immediately. At this time, real horror was happening in an abandoned building. The gentleman tied 2 people by the hands and mocked them. They were exhausted, tormented, and begging for mercy, but the man was too cruel to let them go. After some time, the heroes finally got to the building where the maniac was operating. There was only one chance to meet him. The guys had no room for error. When the heroes wanted to go inside and their backs were turned, the bad guy from the alley suddenly seemed to go berserk and attacked them from behind. The guys were in danger. His knife was already too close. Yunji immediately turned back and managed to hit the young man. He wanted to beat the enemy to death, but the assassin abruptly grabbed his hand and pulled him towards him. At that moment, the incredible happened. The man's eyes sparkled even brighter. His body began to radiate wild energy. Just as he was reaching his limit, a huge fiery explosion filled the streets of the village. One of the players chose good tactics and climbed onto the roof, where there was an excellent view. Suddenly, he saw a strong explosion and realized that he had begun to rejoice too quickly. On his assignment paper was a picture of Young-kyu. He immediately found the newcomer, but after such an explosion, his head most likely turned to ash. The wanted killer noticed that the player looked worried, so he climbed onto his roof. He immediately invited the boy to join him. He was attracted to stupid weaklings with bad character. The maniac clearly saw the level of strength and knew that the young man was weak. He grabbed him by the throat, and the devilish forces began to penetrate inside. It was a soul subjugation skill that was capable of controlling someone who was weaker. Having taken control of several people, the killer ordered the guys from the alley to be given some clues. Yunji fell for it too easily, and the explosion swallowed him whole. It was impossible to survive in such a fire. In fact, he wished he could do things differently. Killing a victim while looking him in the eyes was much more fun and interesting. He was amused by the thought that the 2 guys could be hiding somewhere. The main character had only attacking skills and no defense. Despite this, he took a huge blow. He suffered greatly, but thanks to his dexterity and courage, he still survived. The surviving victims incited the maniac even more. He moved into battle and sent his army forward. He was sure that Yunjae would not be able to resist with such wounds, and a strong soul was reserved for Zhang Jiyu. With so many people, the gentleman had nothing to worry about. He was going to have a lot of fun and lay in wait for the heroes around the corner. Surprisingly, when he saw Yunjae, there was not a single abrasion on him. After the explosion, the hero used a secret skill that, like water, washed away his wounds and burns. This skill was a real cheat, but it didn't have such a good effect and consumed too much mana. Just before the explosion, the hero received a hardening skill, which, when activated, created a durable shell on the surface of the skin. Unexpectedly,